Hey there, Property Masters. Kip Erskine here, driving the long way to work just to avoid. We've got a lot of traffic in Dallas, and I like to avoid the highways. My wife wants me to be safe, and so I'm going to heed that encouraging warning and say, "Hey, there's no reason to be a daredevil." But it's prettier this way, and get to go through some pretty neighborhoods and reflect on my day before my day even starts. So, how about you? How are you in your work, in your role, in your delight as a property manager? Are you loving what you do? Do you do what you love? Um, One of the things that I wanted to touch upon today was how to create more margin in your day, to do more of what you love, and to create the time and the space and the ability to breathe, because sometimes we just get so caught up in the busyness. That seems to be our standard modus operandi, and it should not be the default. You know, adrenaline is there for a reason. You use it to run away, you use it to fight if you have to, you use it for short spurts, but it's not intended to be on full all the time. So creating some margin is definitely important. It's wise, and it allows us to rest and retool and actually give ourselves a chance to think, which we don't do enough of, most of us anyway. So one of the ways that we can create more margin is to maximize our relationships with our service partners. Many refer to them as vendors, but I think that that's a demeaning name. I think of a vending machine. I think of a commodity. I think of a replaceable cog in the wheel of business, and that's not what I intend at all. Service partners are those entities that provide a valued service, and you partner with each other to create greater value than was there in the first place. So how do we then leverage that service partnership to everyone's advantage? Well, if you are the buyer, the acquirer of service, as most property managers are, you do the bidding, you do the qualifying, and recommending who you go ahead to put on your property. So let's just say we're talking about janitorial, and the whole bid process with janitorial is, to me, a little archaic, a little flawed. In that most property managers, or the ones I know, use a scope that's been used before, and sometimes that scope is so old it will refer to cleaning of the ashtrays, which are a thing of the past. So we know that, and your cleaning companies know too, that this is simply a copy and paste job, and that you're not really caring all that much about scope of the work. You're just using it to check boxes and using it as a standard by which to compare bids. So I'll challenge you about that. Number one, if you want to use an old scope, go ahead. But what I like to do to create more margin in my space and to create a deeper and stronger partnership with my service partners is I like to go out to bid on a in general scope, and the bids that come back they try to tell you value, they try to tell you all the different things that makes them different. But what do we do as property managers? We just look at price. And I've created a way that values beyond price. And that's for another audio at another time. But if you can actually attach a dollar value to, an absolute measurement to some of the attributes that you're actually looking for in a firm, like professionalism and responsiveness and communication and problem solving and creativity, then those should be valued just as much as price. So, but put a pin in that for a moment. Let's just say you look at price, and then you take the two most competitive service provider proposals and you average them. So you take an average of the two least expensive, the most competitive, and you come up with a dollar number of what that average is. And let's say it's $100,000 for a matter of example. And instead of adhering to a scope that you probably inherited and didn't create or wasn't very intentional about, um, I like to go back to the service providers and say, okay, for $100,000, forget the scope I just gave you to bid from. Throw it out. How would you now best clean the property, best maintain it so that the standards are absolutely um, as high as you desire at all times with, reasonability factored in there. So that allows the cleaning company to really take off their constraints, their shackles of this scope that they know you don't really aren't all that invested in, and allows them to really conduct blue sky thinking. And these are the things that we cherish is how can we create an outcome for the people and the properties that we serve and the tenants who expect a certain level of service without adhering to a specific scope that was given to them. One of the reasons I don't like a prefab scope is how how should I and what gives me the right as a property manager to actually dictate a frequency of cleaning. So sometimes a scope will say, clean the stairwells once a quarter. Well, do they need to be cleaned once a quarter, or do they need to be cleaned weekly, or they need to be cleaned annually? Why stick in a scope other than just so that you can find you know, a common denominator by which to compare apples to apples on pricing? But I like to give that back to them and have them use that blue sky thinking. Use, maybe I can mix a little, a better combination of day cleaning versus night cleaning. Maybe I can use different equipment. Maybe I can manage recycling differently. Maybe I can manage supplies differently. So it allows them to say, here's your number, manage to that number, create the specific outcome. Don't have me dictate the outcome, but I would, like to get as much creativity as possible. The same works for security. If you told security that I need, these shifts um, covered, and so many man hours per shift, and the size of your team and whatnot, but they will comply with that. They will fill in those particular blanks and give you a number. And unless you specify the actual pay rate, your numbers will be kind of all over the board. But if you did specify a pay rate, then the only differentiator on price is the bill rate. So what is the markup? What's in there? And if you can pull that apart and see that one company trains better than another, and one company trains more often than the other, and one company provides uniforms, one company pays for benefits, one company pays for holidays, then you can kind of parse it a little bit and get down to it. But I like the same strategy as to find the most desirable service partners and then ask them how they would manage their security program given a a budget number. So I like to do that. It's kind of a scope reversal, and it puts it on them that said, instead of 168 man hours and using terms we don't understand, here's $100,000. This is your budget. How would you keep this property secure? And you may find that, like, wow, I wouldn't have patrol service, vehicle patrol, I would have a robot. I'll have, whatever it is they come up with. I would have much more reliance upon your access control system. It gives them the latitude to actually exercise some creativity and problem solving. And I mean, that's the value that a true service partnership brings is, when we can stop dictating and, measuring things with the clipboard and did you deviate from scope and my way or the highway, and start partnering and really elicit the most creative ideas from our professionals who they know their business better than you know their business. Trust me, they're in it. You just manage it. And you manage expectations, and if you provide good expectations and you manage it well, then allow them the blue sky latitude to actually develop creative ideas, creative approaches. You'd be amazed at what comes from that. So that's my tidbit for the week is really create more margin by strengthening your service partnerships. So in conclusion, does that actually build in, save you time? The answer may be not directly, but the more you can empower your service partners to become extensions of your management team, the more awareness is in the field when you're in the office. And the more that can be picked up, whether it's in their scope or beyond the scope, the more items can be attended to properly with or without your attention. So then that frees up your ability from having to make note of everything. And so the first part of expanding the management team is to partner with service partners who actually value how they can create a stronger partnership with you. And most of that is by giving them the latitude to do their jobs. And so that's my tidbit for the week. I look forward to passing along more nuggets, more pearls of wisdom, more of my 38 years of notches on the belt of life, and in this career as a property manager. And we are all on our road to becoming property masters. If you would like some help in that journey to hire better, to expand your management team better, to partner with better service partners, and really create an outcome that you can be proud of and know that the responsibility and accountability is shared, please go to valuesdrivencoaching.com/call and let's chat about it. And might be able to uncover things in a very short period of time that you've been holding back from and may just need a little nudge. I'm happy to help however I can. This is Gip Erskine, Values Driven Coaching, signing off. Have a great week.